Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Path of Me. I'm your host, Wendy Hutchinson, and my guest today is the beautiful and shiny Kari Mena. Hey, Kari. Kari's an energy healer. She is host of two shows, Stardust and also Silver Linings. Silver Linings is her newest venture. And just so happy to have her today. Welcome, Kari. How are you doing?
Hi, Wendy. I'm doing really good. It's the beginning of the year, and it just feels like I don't know, it just feels so fresh to me. I'm in a new place in my evolution, and I'm ready for shit to start getting good, and it is.
Awesome. Last year was kind of a year of change and transition for you.
It really was. There's a lot of, I think it always will be a transition. I keep waiting for me to be, quote, healed. And I am.
Are we ever healed?
Exactly. I got an opportunity to ask my higher self, and she says, you will never be 100%, but as you go, it gets cut by 50% and half and half and half. When it's going to be like this little sliver. But I have done the bulk of my work, and so now it's time for me to start reaping in the rewards of that.
Yes.
The manifesting tricks, and I've learned how to just make the universe work with you rather than resisting all the.
Right. I think we've all had our lessons around resisting.
Mm-hmm.
Just swimming upstream and wash, rinse, repeating the same,
The same patterns. Yes.
Same patterns. Yeah, breaking the patterns is so powerful. And I was wondering if you could share, I know you've just evolved so much in the short time I've known you, but I know your relationships with your family and your soul family, your mom have been so instrumental in this journey.
Yes, and I've had kind of for my life it was all like condensed into like this 3 or 4 year period, all of this change and evolution. So I lived through all of these patterns for so long, and I wasn't interested in anything metaphysical, spiritual, nothing. I wasn't religious. There was just nothing. It existed, but just like football, it's there. I don't care about it. I don't know about it. I know it's there, but it's not part of my awareness, so I don't focus on it. So all of a sudden, it became my awareness, and I was slammed into spirituality.
How did that spark for you? What did that look like?
Well, there's always a catalyst for people.
Right.
Many times it's a tragedy. And it was kind of a tragedy for me, and mine started over a decade ago. Beginning of like 2001 or 2, it was way back then. My cousin, she hung herself, and it really devastated my family. And that was when I started to question, because even though I wasn't religious, I was, raised in a kind of a Christian themed world. I live in America, and, my mom sent me to a little preschool, and I know it was just because it was, economical for her, close to home or whatever. She wasn't sold on the teachings of it, but what they tried to teach me, they had the felt board, and they were teaching me about the 7 days of how God created everything. And that just didn't make sense to me. So, but I just threw it away, and I didn't care about it for forever until my cousin died. And then I went back to that, and I'm like, it doesn't make sense to me why God would punish somebody for killing themselves, for being too sad to live. You'd think that God would want to help that person rather than send them to hell once they died. So that was my catalyst. But nothing really happened again for another 10 years. And I had a friend. Her and I, we didn't make any sense at all. This girlfriend of mine, she was 10 years younger than me, and she was just a wild thing. And I was home with 3 little babies. But we hit it off. And she hung herself too. And that's when I was like, I had another one. And my attitude had changed about death a little bit, because I had been getting a little bit into the spirituality, and that's when I questioned. I said, why is it so bad to cut out of life early, knowing that you can reincarnate and have this experience? I was still at the beginings of my understandings, but it just didn't make sense. So with that statement I made, and I posted it online somewhere in a spiritual group, and I was then turned on to another group about people that survived suicide, friends that killed themselves. So, and somebody in there turned me on to channeling Eric. So, he always like leads you to, and I don't know if your viewers are familiar, they may be, with Eric Meadows, channeling Eric. He hornswoggles and pulls people in many different ways. That's the way he got me. And then there was many other really cool things that I'm not sure you know about, Wendy. Like, for example, Elisa, who's Eric's mom, Elisa wrote a book and I wanted to buy it, but I didn't have much money back then. And I was just about to click, buy on Amazon. And I changed my mind. I said, you know what, I'm going to go to that event at Jamie's in Atlanta and Jamie Butler. So I'm not going to buy this book now. I'll buy it then, and that will count as my souvenir. Well, it was about 4 weeks later that book showed up in my mailbox anyway.
What?
I didn't buy it.
What?
I didn't order it. Yes. And not only that, it gets a little cooler. It was mailed from a town that my dad lives in Oregon, or lived in at the time. And it was signed by Elisa. She had signed it at the bookstore that I used to take my 3 kids at to go play Thomas the Tank Engines up in the Barnes and Noble. So it's all these super stinky things. And there was so many more stinks. And I heard that Eric has sent that book out to other people too and got them that way. So my journey, that's where it really started. Then I was plunged into it. And what happened to me was that my crown chakra opened up. And I didn't even know about chakras yet. I didn't know what was happening to me. So when this happened, all these other lives of mine, concurrent existences everywhere else, came flooding into me. And apparently this version of me signed up to heal for all of them.
Oh my God.
So my healing journey was so intense. And I used to say I have scribbles in my brain. I couldn't think. All I could do was cry. I'd have music blasting in my brain all the time. I'd be cooking with just music. It's so loud. And all my neighbors, I know that they must have thought, what the fuck is going on with Kari? Because all I would do is swing on the tree swing. I'd swing so high that I would create friction. I'd create friction on the metal links and they would melt. And one time I landed on my knee.
Oh my God.
I know, I was a nut. And through this journey and through readings,
how did you process all that? That's so much coming in. Like you go from like a normal 3D life and then boom, you're just completely open and all this shit is pouring in at one time. How did you process that?
I don't, to be honest, Wendy, and somebody once commented, it's like, you shouldn't say these kinds of things because then you're going to put fear in other people. And I'm like, I'm not sugarcoating it. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. And
what's your journey?
I think about like being a soldier, because I know through Shine Eller as a soldier many times. And I was thinking, that's really radical. That's fighting for your life too, but that's like a primal thing. And you're like, fight or flight, adrenaline's going. Mm-hmm. But I'm fighting for my life in another way. I mean, it felt like it was the battle of a lifetime. And I am surprised I am not dead. I mean, I struggled to stay alive. It was so bad. My husband would be scared. He'd be like, we need to take you to a doctor, because I would just collapse and crumble on the floor with so much emotional pain. Yeah. And here's something very interesting I just learned. I know you don't know this because I only just learned it. But have you heard me mention that life where I was in the brothel? I was a prostitute at the brothel. I'm always referring to this one.
I think I have.
Okay, because the reason I'm like kind of clinging to this one is because it keeps coming up into my awareness. And when I first started this journey, I was in Orlando, Florida, and there was a Groupon for a hypnotist session, and you could do anything, weight loss, quit smoking, whatever. I go in there with my $20 Groupon. I say, I want to do a past life regression. So he's like, okay, I'll go for it. So I did it. And the life that I went back to, and I didn't realize it at the time, was my life as this prostitute in a brothel. And I saw things. I saw the room I was in. It was, there was like a quilt on the bed, like a patchwork quilt. Mm-hmm. And Eric was on the bed, and he was like, leaning on his arm like this. And I just loved him so much. I still didn't know what was going on. And later on, I learned that that's what that was. It was the brothel life. Now I'm going to just put that on pause for a minute, because about 25 years ago, when I was first with my husband, and sorry for TMI, but when I would be with him, I would look around the room and the walls would change. And I would see like very ornate wallpaper, like the same kind you'd see in an old saloon.
Like an 1800s kind of wallpaper.
But every time that, we'd be in there, hanging out, it would be a different room. It'd like a change in it, and I'd always cry. And I'd be like, I don't understand this. Why am I crying? Yeah. Well, I just learned recently that what that was about was that my that life like bled into this life. So I absorbed all of her lessons and all of her experiences, and that was the time it was happening, and that's how I was having what I called flashbacks or hallucinations. I didn't know what it was. And my story gets a little bit more interesting because I learned also that I am concurrently incarnated as an Andromedan. And I got a chance to meet her through a trance channeling on my Stardust show. But what we did instead, even though she's a current incarnation, we chose to interview her 100 years in the future, where I would be long gone, because she absorbed me. So and that's who gave me the clue. She goes, each life plays on another, and a little light bulb went off. She was describing how my memories came into her being and what that was like. And I was like, oh my gosh, I bet that's what happened to me.
Yeah.
When I experienced.
So it's kind of like continuing the.
Yeah. So this version of me wants, and I have another one coming up. Future me won't tell me what it is, but future me says I have another one coming, and I'll definitely know what it is. So I'm having all of these lives. Yeah. So I'm not only.
That's really cool. Also, since there's actually no time, it's all happening right now. So it's all.
Yeah, it's literally all happened right now in this body.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why my healing journey was so intense, was because I was, I'm collecting all of these other parts of me. You've heard of soul.
It's kind of like maybe you're just becoming whole again. Like
that's exactly it. Yes, that's
like
exactly
there
it.
were fractals of you that got blasted out, and now your role in this life is to bring all those different fractals back together and put your soul back to, bring it back.
That is exactly it. And I am enjoying this journey very much at this point, because I'm recognizing my superpower is to recognize people from my soul family. So I'm actually finding, my higher self calls herself Fairy Girl. And I know she just does that for me. They're genderless. But I've recently found another incarnation of myself. I found like a true twin, another piece of Fairy Girl. I call him Fairy Boy. So I'm collecting these other people, and it's like putting myself back together through relationships with other versions of myself. Isn't that trippy?
That's so cool, though.
And I bet many of us do this. I'm just fortunate enough to be able to know about it and know who they are.
Yeah. So you've had kind of an accelerated 3 years. It sounds like 3 or 4 years. It's kind of like you were bubbling along through your life. You have 3 kids. You have a husband. You're doing what you're doing. And then all of a sudden you got slammed. It's kind of like they just accelerated your path, and they're like, we need you to wake up. You're going to be a change maker. You're going to be an influencer. You're going to be a beacon.
Yes.
In these transitional times, and you need to kind of come online. And so you had 3 probably really challenging, which is kind of the nice way of putting it, years.
I really did. And I always knew, to keep the faith. I don't know, because like I said a little bit ago, I'm surprised I'm still alive, but what kept me alive was my faith, and of course my kids. But I always knew that there's something better waiting for me. So there's no reason for me to just suffer like that, because there really wasn't any reason. What I used to do is try to assign my pain to a true circumstance in my life, because I didn't understand I was reliving or healing from something else.
Right.
So I must be sad about this thing. But what I would do is create a real problem then, because now I've assigned this pain, and then I made, stirred the shit pot for myself.
Well, you kind of like, you basically, you feel the pain, and then you respond to life from that place of pain, and then you create a circumstance that validates the pain.
Absolutely.
Right? And then it's like a cycle that you.
That's exactly what it was. And that's what the twin work was. I mentioned that I'm in a twin flame relationship. And it's not all romantic like the internet would have you believe. He was there to be those problems that I invented. So I worked out all my shit through him. So, and many of it was imaginary. It was just me. It was real to me, but we'd have a big fight over the weekend, and he wouldn't even know about it. Monday would come around and say, okay, we're better now.
Let me tell you what happened this weekend.
And I'd tell him how mad I was and why and what he did. He didn't do anything.
Oh my God.
But that's how I had to work it out. And it worked for me.
So you've done a tremendous amount of growth and healing. And I think a lot of times people mistake the suffering for something negative, but really it can be a catalyst for change.
It's kind of like a cleansing.
Yes.
When you clean your house, the house gets messy before it gets cleaner, because you have to take everything out of the closet, sort it, throw the garbage away, put the nice stuff in back. But for a while, it's a mess. So I was cleaning my house and I've been a mess.
Mm-hmm. So this is your year because you finally, I think, kind of transcended the suffering aspect, and you said your new word is surrender. So I want to talk a little bit about how you came to that place of absolute surrender and acceptance.
All right. Well, I haven't really shared this story yet. It's going to be my debut.
Well, before you start, I just want to apologize if there's any audio issues. Kari was hearing a little reverb, so we weren't able to fix it, but hang in there because I know her content's going to be amazing. So
you can bear with robot. Just kidding. It has a little funny. Well, on my end it does. Maybe it doesn't for the rest.
I hope when we play it back it'll be fine. But Kari, tell me about that. Tell me how that unfolded for you.
Okay, well, some people that know who I am know that I am a person who is to learn and teach about unconventional relationships. I am to break the dogmas that man has placed in our path. And one of those, and we can talk about this later, but one of those is my relationship with Avery, who is an ET. So I have a relationship with an alien. I'm married to him. I have a baby with him, and it's this whole beautiful thing. I love that story. So and I'll share that one a different time or later on today, but that relationship is clearly unconventional, especially since I'm married to another man. So I have two husbands. And another part that is to teach about is my human unconventional relationships, because I have a relationship with spirit too. I'm all over the place. But my relationship at home, my husband and I haven't lived in a traditional marriage for a long, long time. And I understand now the path. Of course I didn't back then, and he didn't either. And I just needed, people like me, I have other people that are like me that are kind of, woo and in the clouds. And I have a purpose. That's my purpose, is to teach these other kinds of things. But I needed a grounder. I needed somebody who's going to take care of me and, get my car fixed when it needs to be and do all of that earthy stuff that's just not even a part of my world. So I had that in my man. We have a really great friendship and we're super committed to family, but there hasn't been any kind of romance in a long, long time. Mm-hmm. So we finally got to a place where we understood that we are partners. And I've learned that, I really thought that this journey was about me in many ways, and I still do. I know because I had that huge healing that there's a lot of players in my life that are here for my evolvement. But where was I going with this? Oh, okay, so I thought it was all about me, but I heard that my kids are going to go on to do something great. So they needed a balance of a mother and a father that, he was very grounding and I was very woo. So our life together is about them, and they're almost grown now. So we've decided at this point to be more of a partnership. So I have a freedom to go and explore and have relationships. And just because I have that freedom doesn't mean I've done anything yet, but it's in my path because, as you said, it's my year. So I'm also to teach about not having a conventional marriage. You don't have to do it like, the old books and the old rules and the old laws say. It's your world. You create it any way you want. What works for you works. And right now this is working for us. So my big surrender at first was, this is so interesting to me, Wendy, because my husband and I, I always throw him under the bus, but there's always a silver lining behind it. We would fight all the time. We'd fight. And we both, like I said, we love our kids so much, and we have a beautiful family, a beautiful life together, but there was so much fighting. And I got to the point where I was like, something has got to change. I can't be living in this fighting anymore. I didn't know what to do. So my solution was to think of all these solutions. Do I move out and move far away? Do I move out up the street? What do I do? None of them felt okay. Do I move into the bedroom upstairs? None of them seemed like a reasonable solution. So I thought I was doing the right thing by trying to come up with next. But what I was really doing was I was trying to control the situation.
Right.
I was trying, I thought my best efforts to solve something were a resolution. Really, they was just control. So what the universe does sometimes is pushes you so hard that you give up the fight. And I don't mean to say that a surrender is you roll over and you give up, because a surrender is getting so pissed off that you don't care what's next. I don't care. I'm giving that up. I'm surrendering whatever that was despite what comes up next. And once you do that, you're allowed to have your answer. So I did have my answer. I got my inner peace just from letting that shit go.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that I was to go on this trek. I had decided I'm going to run away from home and go stay with a friend. And I'm going to, think and get my inner peace there. But no, the inner peace came before. I haven't gone yet. The inner peace came with my decision to let the other stuff go. And what my answer was, this is such a crazy solution, was I can't move out. I can't stay here.
Right.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to travel the world and promote and do my shows all over the place. I have people, friends all over the world that are always inviting me to come stay with them. So that's my answer. I surrendered. I couldn't find up a reasonable solution. I gave up the fight, and then the answer came to me. And I have gotten confirmation from my guides that, yes, in fact, that's it. And my husband is very comfortable with this too, because he's in a little bit different place than I am. He likes things, he doesn't do well with change. But he knew too that something needed to change.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, that works, because we're going to have the space we need from each other.
Right.
She's going to be home. This is still her home base.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to leave my kids. I want to be their mommy, but we're in the days of Skype and all that. So anyway, that's what surrender looked like to me, is just so fucking pissed off at the way it was. And I've done it over and over again. I just didn't know what it was. And I feared it. I had to give up my twin relationship. That was very hard. I clung to him for dear life. He was my blankie. But that wasn't working out, and I had to let that go. That was a really hard one. And then other projects in my life, I had to let them go. They weren't working for me. And each and every time I let it go, once the dust settled, my life became more peaceful and better than when it was before. And I have learned that now. I have seen that pattern. So I'm going to continue with that pattern. So next time I'm faced with a challenge, I'm not going to try to control it. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to roll with it and know that my next is going to be great, because our higher selves are always working towards our best and good, our best and highest. So when you put that faith into it, into your own journey, it's not even necessarily putting faith in God. You can call it that. But since we are a piece of God, you're putting faith in yourself.
Right.
So put faith in your own journey and your own plans, and you will be happy. You'll find your joy. You can't cling to the shit.
Yeah, it's so powerful when you get to that place, but boy, it takes how many cycles, right?
For reals. And you know what?
Repeating.
Another thing is that sometimes when you're backed into a corner like that, you have to understand that you're not going to come up with the solution. This is my theory. This is a personal theory. You won't come up with the solution, because they want your solution to be, it's so outlandish. It's not even about what's next sometimes. It's about just learning that surrender. So if the answer was easy, then they would have handed it to you, or you would have figured it out already. You wouldn't have needed to surrender. But they want you, and by they, I mean the guides, your higher self wants you to learn that surrender. So they put the answers. So I've had a few of these. I'm like, I can't even believe Fairy Girl made that my story. I can't believe that was what was next. So when you're backed into a corner, let it go, and then the answer comes to you. It's not going to be easy.
Yeah, it's like the tighter you hold on to it, the more resistance and friction you create, and then you can't get there.
Yes, and another
you're so blinded by the need to control, right?
You use that word resistance. And I remember with my mom, I believed I was taking the path of least resistance by doing what she wanted, and bowing down to her will and catering to her, and not having the fighting. But that is not the path of least resistance. That is the path of massive buildup of yuckiness,
resentment.
You're not being true to yourself. Yeah. So don't ever think that you're doing anybody a favor by that. You go ahead and you confront that and deal with it right now before that buildup. I mean, years. I'm 47 years old, and it wasn't until I was 44 that I decided I can't do this anymore with my mom. It went that long. That's another thing, about dogmas and relationships. Just because she's your mom and she's your blood does not mean that you are obligated to stick around for that abuse.
Or sacrifice yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You should never sacrifice yourself in who you are and your truth.
Right.
Ever, ever, ever.
And I thought, I'd be doing my kids a disservice by, getting rid of their grandma. And, maybe there's a little bit of truth to that, but there was so much toxicity in it that we are all better off.
Don't you find, though, that as you've changed and evolved, your relationship is with your mom and the people around you? That's
another really good point you're making. Yes, because with my husband, since we've made this decision together, it was my idea, but he was with it. But I'm on this evolution and, in a different way than he is.
Yeah.
There's so much more peace here. It's true. And my higher self told me that I will want to reconnect with my mom at one point. I haven't seen her in years. I don't care to. I really don't miss it at all.
Mm-hmm.
But if I do see her again, I will be in such a place of peace. that, you know, all of her shit will just roll right off me. I believe that. So yes, relationships, because one of the reasons we get stuck in patterns is, well, I don't know there's many reasons why we do the resistance and stuff, but those patterns are there to teach us to change. And once we change, those patterns are gone. So this fighting that I've had with my husband all these years, it was like a miracle, really. It just washed away. Once we made that decision and made peace with it, it's like, I don't need to fight anymore. So yeah, everything, all the relationships.
It starts to kind of transmute, and you start to go into the flow. You know, instead of like being in the rapids.
Exactly.
Kind of that place of calm, calm waters. You're like, wow, what do you, it's kind of unnerving at first if you're used to being in that churning chaos, drama, fighting.
Yeah, and all the fear that's there.
Yeah, so it sounds like you've been able to release a lot of fear. And
yeah, I feel fearless. I mean, I have like little intimidations, like a little stage fright for these videos and stuff, but you know, nothing major. Like I said, I'm about to run away from home. I have some plans for it, and that's intimidating. But I'm not afraid, if that makes sense. I'm like, you know, nervous fear, but not like fear. You know what
What's
I mean?
cool is that you know so many people around the world, and you have such a following, such a global following.
I know.
You can actually go and do all these international events. That's super.
I know. I get invited to come stay. I know. I love it. I love this. I mean, my life has been one of huge duality. Like I said, I had no like religion, spirituality, nothing in the beginning. I had no money in the beginning. I had no voice in the beginning. I was this fat, frumpy, depressed, anxious housewife that didn't do anything. And now I'm like, and I don't mean to imply that I'm rich, but I have enough money to go have fun with my girlfriends. I am totally immersed in spirituality. It's my life. I have no filter. You talk to me, you're going to get some woo. It's just the way I am. And I get to share my story. I mean, I bear all to everybody all the time. Whereas before,
that's what I love about you is you're so authentic, and so many people are still, you know, have a lot of filters in place. And I love that you're so real, you're so authentic, you're living your life, you're sharing your message, and you're doing exactly what you came here to do, which first and foremost is to become whole and complete yourself, and then share that with others and show them how they can.
Yes, that's my life in a nutshell, is, you know, healing and growing and being myself, and then inspiring others to do the same.
Yeah, and I hope that every individual takes that to heart, because we should heal ourselves first and foremost, and through that, all the magic starts to happen. You know, as you become more whole and complete, more authentic, more empowered, more aligned with your higher self aspects, and you realize that you're not just this human here is just a fractal of who you really are. Like, we're all so important in the cosmic fabric of life, you know?
Yeah, that's a
all matters.
Concept still. We all do. I believe that wholeheartedly. But it's so hard to put that into perspective sometimes. So you just think, I'm just me.
Yeah, I feel that too. I'm like, I'm just me, you know, I'm just doing my thing. But every single person matters, and every single person is here for a very specific reason. And every single person is here to create impact in some way. It could be just somebody who's a baker and has a bakery, and they just bake all day long. Well, they're impacting every person that comes into their bakery, and they're living their passion by baking. And, you know, you don't have to be Oprah.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I have you know, our friend Sarah, we have a mutual friend, Sarah. Sarah was introducing me. She had a Christmas party recently, and she's like, you know, in my ear saying, this is this person, and telling me who everybody is. And one of the stories she told me was a woman whose daughter lost a foot or something, and she had to have it amputated. I don't know the whole story. But she told me that this woman started a foundation, and through her foundation, she managed to get 8 people proper prosthetics. And, you know, it's just 8 people. But at the same time, she changed the lives of 8 people. And those 8 people, it's going to make me cry, changed the lives of 8 more and 8 more and 8 more. So it may seem insignificant, but those 8 people that had their lives changed in a positive way because of the one person, just
there's an exponential ripple.
Yes.
Yeah. Incredible.
Love
And
that.
so, you know, I think we should never say that we are just ordinary,
Hmm.
you know, or that we're just a small player or that we don't matter. In fact, the post I just put on Facebook was how important every single one of you is in this world. Every single person matters, and without that person, the world isn't the same, you know, it's forever changed.
It's true. We touch people, and like I said about my kids, thought it was about me, it's about them. They're going to go out and, their tentacles are going to stretch
Yeah.
across universes. And
How lucky they are to have you.
oh, thank you. And you know what? That's another thing is that we think small sometimes. We're talking about, I'm talking about these 8 people and they're 8 people or whatever. But what I learned from my Stardust show, which is, we talk to all kinds of entities and other alien species and stuff. But what I learned from that was so interesting to me is that we have a bigger non-human audience than human audience. So we are truly affecting the galaxy. Isn't that trippy?
It's true. I totally believe it.
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh. That's really powerful, and you probably have a waiting list to get on your Stardust show.
Probably. We're about to channel some new aliens this week. So I'm excited for that. We haven't had a new species in a long time. I'm looking forward to it.
Tell me about your Silver Linings show. That's something new that you've taken on.
It is something new. I had a show with my partner Allison, but I was being propelled to start something on my own. And I'm still involved with Stardust because, it's with this one entity, or not entity, this one species that
you feel connected
husband.
to.
Yes, my family's in there, my husband and my baby's over there. So, that's important to me. But Silver Linings is something that I just wanted to have my own control at last. I grew my balls and I grew up and I wanted to do things my way. And so I've only have 2 episodes so far. I have 3. I'm about to post a 3rd one that's with Emma. And yes, and so my show is basically, I don't know, it's just consistently inconsistent, and I just want to interview whoever about whatever. It's going to probably mostly be metaphysical stuff, but you never know with me. So that's I've always known too that my show and my journeys would go together. I just never understood that it would be right now. My kids are still, my youngest are 11. They're old enough. We got Skype, but I felt like it would be much later in the future. So I just couldn't grasp that it would be now. So I'm going to travel around and I think just try to find silver linings from people out wherever I'm at and do interviews that way and incorporate that somehow. But I really am enjoying it. Like I said, I've only have a few episodes, but it's getting really great responses. And I hear it's going to be big. Ooh.
Everything you touch is going to be big. Your magic. You're sprinkling your sparkly magic on everything that you touch and everything you do. And I'm really excited.
True.
I'm really excited
to. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. So tell me about how have you changed in the last 3 years? If you look back at who you were 3 years ago to who you are now, what was the biggest catalyst or the biggest shift that kind of propelled you forward?
Well, all of the lessons I had, mostly the surrendering ones, let me know how much power I have. I was told in a reading a long time ago, you have no idea how much power you have. And I believe that's true of everybody. Mm-hmm. Everybody is so incredibly powerful, but you just don't know it. And I often say in spirituality, everything's really hard and really easy at the same time. For example, meditation. Meditating's easy unless you don't know how to do it. How do I do it? You look back on your before and after. It's like, and how do you tell a person how to meditate? You can't really tell them. You just have to experience it for themselves. So it really is easy once you figure it out. So that's how I really felt and I didn't even know that I felt powerless. I just accepted my fate for what it was. Mm-hmm. I'm a fat, frumpy, depressed, and anxious housewife. that's what I was. That was my life. And it depressed me a little bit because I was like, my kids are going to grow at some point, and I'm just going to be stuck washing my husband's dirty laundry. I do not want that for the rest of my life. So I guess that's the biggest shift from going from not necessarily feeling powerless, but not understanding how much power I really have. And now I'm taking that power and I'm creating and I'm growing. And
I love it.
Yes, and it's work. You got to put your own work into it.
Sure.
I don't have that mother figure anymore telling me what to do. I'm on my own. So I'm using that power. That's my biggest thing, and everybody can claim that. Everybody has it.
Was it a big adjustment for you from going from being always kind of compromising yourself to now standing in your own power and
it was a battle.
Manifestation, like to internally accept and step into your power fully and embrace who you are and what you're here to do. It must have been quite a shift for you.
It was really hard, and it didn't. It was, even though I had it was this 3-year concentration. It took a while for me to understand that. And you know how sometimes when somebody feeds you a concept and you're like, oh, I kind of get that. Then you hear it again in a different context and it fits a little bit more. And then you hear it again and it slams into home. I got it. And lessons have layers too. So even though you get this layer, it gets deeper and deeper sometimes. That's how it was for me. So it was gradual. It didn't feel like a huge shift, but now being on the other side of it, there's such a clear before and after. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of
I honor your journey and acknowledge you for staying with it and hanging in there, because spiritual evolution is not for the faint of heart.
It's really not.
At all of your shit, you have to go deep. Mm-hmm. There's layer after layer after layer. You think you cleared something, 6 months later, there it is again, and you're like, damn it, I thought I cleared this.
That damn pattern's back. No.
Yeah. You got to keep scraping out a little more, scraping till you get to the bottom of the barrel, and you just clear it.
Don't forget, I was doing this for the other lives, so I didn't even understand what my lives were. And one of it, my partner from Stardust, her higher self said to me, I talked to her one time. She said, in my personal opinion, you took on way too much.
Yeah.
It was thank you for that validation.
Yeah. That probably sounded like a great idea when you're in the astral. I'll just clear 1,000 lives in one lifetime. It'll be fine. I got this. I got this.
And that's so me, because I'm the girl that will take every single grocery bag from the car to the house, even though my fingers are breaking off. I'm doing it all at once. I'm not going back for a second trip.
Oh, and by the way, you're going to do it in 3 years.
Right.
But you got this.
I'm insane. I mean, I went to I had an evaluation. She's ready to send me to the psych ward. And my higher self, a week later, she said, if you ever, and she already knew, of course she knew, but she said it on the show, if you ever go and have yourself evaluated, they're going to send you to the psych ward. I'm like, that just happened last week. I ran away.
Or she tried to medicate you probably too.
Oh, definitely. And that's another thing through my healing, just, point out to those people that are you start this healing journey, you really do heal many, many things, not just your emotions, but, your physical ailments have emotional origins too. So I got off so many of my medications. I was on 13.
Wow.
Yeah. So I got off many of my medications and,
how did you do that? Tell me how you did that.
That's a mystery. It's mostly energy healing. I used to do energy healing meditations, the free ones that people offer online. And I was just consistent with it. And I remember I went to my doctor one time, my endocrinologist. I have PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, which means that I have insulin resistance and causes problems like, weight gain and infertility. And I haven't completely healed from that entirely. I don't know that I will. Maybe not, but it's manageable. But I did manage to cut that medication in half. But before I did that, when I was in my crazy time, I quit taking my medicine altogether. And I went to my doctor. I know, I just couldn't.
Oh my gosh, Kari.
It was too much thinking for me to remember to take a pill. I mean, I was nuts.
So you must have gone into some physical, shock or something just to cut all those meds out at one time. That sounds kind of intense.
It was, especially the brain ones, that really messed me up. You should never ever do
Maybe
that.
You should have
wean yourself
on that.
Definitely. So I'm not endorsing that. But what's interesting is that when I went to my endocrinologist, she says, "Wow, your numbers look great. Whatever you're doing, keep it up."
Oh my God.
And I said, "Actually, I quit taking my meds." And she goes, "Well, how did you do it?" So I told her energy healing, and she was so impressed. Usually this does not happen with doctors. She's like,
right.
"Tell me about it." She wanted to watch my show. She was very interested, so I appreciate that. But yes, most of my, I did it all through energy healing, and I've lost weight. I got to a place where I found self-love, and this past year I spent almost the whole year dieting. I lost almost 50 pounds, and then I gave
Wow.
up. I got pissed off and I wanted to eat. So I ate all season long, and now I'm suffering. I'm back on the diet. I gained a bunch of weight back, and I'm mad. That too was a lesson learned. I can't do that again. I can have a cookie, not 5,000.
Right. You might want to scale it back to one.
Yeah, scale it back a little.
Cookie.
But yeah, so all of these things just all fell into place. And
I'm so glad you're you. I'm so glad that you're whole and becoming complete, and
yes,
that you're so, I just think you're such a beautiful human being.
Wendy, thank you. And
Kari, you're just here to shine a light, and I love that you're unfiltered. I love that you say exactly what's happening in your life, and everybody's here to walk their own path. And that's what the show is about. It's about showcasing people who are living an authentic life. That's somebody who is basically you, Kari, who is saying what you think, living what you believe, following your dreams, sharing your message, and being authentically you, and not worrying about fitting into some sort of paradigm or box.
exactly. And that's the word authentic is what other people have chosen to use on me too. And I've kind of glommed onto that. I like that. And I know it's a compliment, and I take it as such.
Yeah.
And I've been getting many messages to don't edit out your life. You tell everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I get a lot of compliments. Many people still are timid to speak their own truth. So I get a lot of messages, private messages, thanking me for inspiring them in that way. So I love that.
And I think a lot of people who are just awakening aren't necessarily where we are, as far as the spiritual knowledge that we possess. And so I'm going to ask people to receive all this information with a real open mind, because just because it may not resonate right now, you may get to a point in your evolution where you're going to be like, oh, now I get it.
Another one of those layers. It's brought back into their awareness in a different way. And then they're going back and saying, that's what that meant.
I remember when I listened to that interview, and I was like, I don't know what they're talking about.
Not crazy what you're talking about. Aliens? What the hell?
I'm just going to ask people to really keep an open mind, because we don't know what we don't know until we actually know it.
That's true. Just like that meditation thing. You don't know until you know it.
Right?
And I did go off. I did talk about some of my more crazy stuff over here. If you go ahead and reject that, but take the other stuff, the part about surrendering.
Take what resonates, and that's what I think being on this path is about. It's really about going through and filtering information and using your discernment about what aligns for you, what resonates for you, and take that lesson or take that nugget of wisdom and incorporate that into your life, and then let go of anything that doesn't, and it's totally fine. That's what evolving and growing looks like. Right?
I think that's also kind of a key to learning too, is to not buy into everything that some person says. You take bits and pieces that work for you, and you create and fill in the blanks with your own experience.
You create your own, you create basically your own belief system. Because that's what you need to follow, your own belief system, not something that is force-fed or,
Right. You do the one that feels good to you, because we are here to feel good. I know I said I went through that suffering, but it was cleaning the house. We're here to shine, and we're here to have a good life. And you could always choose that. Even if you're soul self-contracted or signed up for something hard, you always have free will, and you can always change that. If you're on this path, if you're watching these kinds of shows, there's something within you that wants to grow and evolve. So allow yourself to do it. You can do it just like I did. Free yourself.
So Kari, if people want to find you, what's the best place? Is it your website? Share your website.
I do have a website. It's called silverlininghealings.com, and it's interesting. I got some good stories in there. I don't visit it too much. I'm just not disciplined because most of my action is on Facebook. It's just
So
the way.
Facebook is a better way to
Facebook
follow.
is, yes, that's the best way. And so my name, if you would like to friend me or follow me, is Kari Silver Lining Mena, and I have a Facebook group called Silver Lining Energy Healing. I also have my shows. I have the Stardust show on YouTube. That's 2 words for Stardust. I mean for YouTube. And I have my new show, Silver Linings. And then I also have my show, the Shiny Show, which I've taken a break from, but there's a couple hundred episodes on there, and we interview anything from angels to organs. We channel my body parts to planets to historical figures.
Anything with energy, right?
Anything. We have interviewed the higher selves of people still alive today. You mentioned Oprah. We talked to Oprah's higher self, and we all
I missed that one.
Yeah, that was fun. We did Grumpy Cat and, and Oprah and Stephen King. It was fun.
Oh my God. Well, I'm so glad we got to carve out some time today. You're just so full of wisdom and light, and I'm just wishing you all the best in your upcoming adventures. I always ask every guest towards the end of our show if you could share one. I know you shared so much wisdom throughout the interview, but one thing that really helped you to get through the tough times, something that you really, maybe a spiritual practice or a belief or something that really helped you move through some of the suffering.
What really helped me, and can't even believe I'm going to say this based on the way I grew up, but the biggest thing was my faith in God. And I got to interview God the first time I did. I still do on this journey. I didn't even think that was possible. God was too big for me. But God said to me, if you don't have faith in yourself, you can't have faith in you, then have faith in me. And that's what did it. And just that little bit, because I couldn't believe in myself yet. So my hope was like this big, and incrementally teeny tiny little steps, I was getting better. And I just clung to that. So cling to your faith that all will be well, and that God and your higher self, who are the same, are looking out for you.
Yes, that's true. Beautiful words of wisdom. Thank you so much. You've just
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for everything today, Kari. And to my audience, thank you so much for tuning in. My website is linealifecoaching.com. I'd love for you to get over there and check it out. And if this content resonated, please subscribe, like, and share. Have a beautiful day. I love you all, and be kind to yourselves. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.